Hello, I'm Sean Paul with Morningstar Missions. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching our video series on how to become a full-time missionary. You know, our prayer is that these become a massive blessing to you and get you started right in the mission field. If you want to contact me, feel free to do so. My email address is in the description of this YouTube video. If you want to network with fellow missionaries, we also have a link there to our Facebook group. Please join. We would love to have you. Make sure you subscribe to this channel because we're definitely going to be adding a lot more content in the future. And then the final note is that this video series is based off a book by the name of Pursuing the Call. The author is Daniel Lamastra, and he's a full-time missionary in El Salvador. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, Melissa, thank you so much for jumping on this Zoom call for full-time missionary training. We had you on the Mission Shop Talk, and we talked about the advanced global coaching for missionaries. And then in that, I found out that you have another, so to speak, component to that, and it's called Returning Well. And I felt like this would be a perfect piece to add at the end of the missionary training, because, you know, there's missionaries that do go to the field, but then they return back from the field. And this is something, and obviously we're going to talk about that in this video. This is something that you've developed in your profession as far as life coaching. And let me just introduce you, if in case you haven't watched the video. You're Melissa Chaplin, and you're with Advanced Global Coaching, and you do life coaching for missionaries. And you guys have a system, so to speak, in place of an 18-month long process of life coaching. And you know, obviously, we don't want to delve into all the mechanics of that. Just tell them to go watch that video
Right.
in the Mission Shop Talk section, and you'll know everything about that. I highly recommend it. It's a piece that we're going to add to the component of our ministry as well in sending missionaries to the field. But we're going to talk about returning well because, you think, hey, I'm going back to the United States. You know, everything's going to be great. I'm going back to my original homeland. But unfortunately, sometimes living in a different culture, sometimes cultures can collide, new transitions can collide. So you help those people in that process. But thank you so much for jumping on this call and sharing about Returning Well.
I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah. And, let's just kind of talk about a little bit about the, how did you become interested in, and I'm reading the notes for people wondering why I keep on looking up. We got all kinds of notes, and Melissa and I formulated here. But how did you get involved in the actual cross-cultural mission work and then into this ministry that you are doing as far as life coaching?
Yes. Well, I am thankful that I grew up in a fellowship where missions was a part of our ethos and identity, and follow that through several years. And I get to college where it was very much a college where people are being sent and returning for 6 months, a year at a time. And I'd see friends and classmates come back, and I realized like there's something that's happening here in the reentry that's just makes this integration back into life hard. They're a different person than when they left. And so those are when the seeds were planted, and my degree was in member care, or at least had that thrust with it. And then I was called into basically an apprenticeship in member care. And that's where really the thrust of this Returning Well, the idea of it began. It wasn't published until 10 years after that, and a lot of more. But I moved on to other organizations, and I think really where Returning Well was birthed was this idea of when people were returning from serving cross-culturally, many of them wanted what's called a debriefing that would lead to renewal, a place to say, I want to look back to see what happened? What did God do? How can I take what happened or how I grew and take that forward? How can I help people get to know the new person I am? There's a sense of on the outside of me, I may look the same, but the inside of me is very different.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people go to a residential, meaning in-person debriefing program, which is excellent. However, for a lot of people, travel costs, the actual cost of the debriefing, even just the energy to do it, the time, it's just not available. And all those people were dropping through the cracks.
Yeah.
And so that's where this idea came from.
Okay. Now, one thing I kind of want to dial back just a hair here.
Yeah.
Let's touch on something. And, I'm not saying that a lot of missionaries would not even be aware of it. I wasn't not aware of it until I actually delved into the mechanics of being a missionary. And I kind of jokingly say, I've been on the field for going on 9 years, been doing missions since 2008. And I've learned that I don't know anything about missions. That's basically where I'm at right now. I know nothing about missions, even though I've been in the field for, like I said, going on 9 years. But one thing that was never exposed to me was missionary care. So, missionary care for those that are watching, basically it's the church, the sending church that partners with you in the work that you're doing, and they actually consistently partner with you in what you're doing, and then they do their mission work through you, not just kind of flip you some, like a tip. I wanted to say propina, that's Spanish, tip. They just kind of throw you a tip each month and say, hey, thanks for doing your work in Honduras or wherever. Oh, by the way, we don't even know what you're really doing down there. But missionary care is like coming together as one, uniting as one, partnering with them, and then following through with them and checking in on them, how their family's doing, how they're, how's the situation down there, what resources are you needing, so forth and so forth. And again, I'm not saying that, like my church didn't do that, because they did. They cared for us. They were a part of the work. They are a part of the work that we're doing. But again, I never knew that term, missionary care. So again, life coaching is kind of like a component of that. And then again, this returning well back to, wherever your homeland is, because I don't want to assume it's just the United States, because obviously there's missionaries. What's interesting is I was walking down the street here and this guy comes up and walks up to me and says, would you like to support the work that we're doing in Honduras? And I'm like, man, you speak good English, And he's like, well, I'm from Philippines. I'm like, huh? What do you mean? Philippines? What are you doing here? He says, I'm a missionary to Honduras. I'm just like, are you serious? I have never, met somebody, that from like Philippines to the Honduras. So again, we can't assume just because it's, English speaking video here that you're going back to the United States. So, you talk about like unpacking some elements of common reentry. What are some things that you are seeing in this component of returning well, of missionaries returning, and what are some things that you are seeing that needs to be dealt with?
Absolutely. And also just to mention, a lot of people use returning well even on home assignments. So I don't know what the people listening here, if they'll have a home assignment, but some people go for 2 years and then come back for 6 months. And that there's a debriefing that is usually really helpful at that point too. So that's another opportunity. So things I'm seeing, probably the biggest one is just walking through grief. You think about when you have served overseas, you have built a life, you have gotten to the place where it's your home. And those are your people, and those are your friends, and those are your neighbors. And there's a sense of, usually in some way, shape, or form, of belonging, of accomplishment, and then to be able to come back to your passport culture, which actually is probably not very similar. There's probably some similarities, but it has changed too while you're gone. And so you're kind of foreigner over here still. You weren't quite local, and then you come here and you don't quite feel like you fit in, even though you may look like you fit in potentially if you're going back to the majority culture where you were from. But so just there's a lot of grief and a lot of loss. And one of the things in the book that I talk about is it's like going and becoming a piano virtuoso and then returning to a place where there's no piano. Mm-hmm. And there's a sense of this, it's called role deprivation, where the way that you were known and the way that you were able to contribute to the world, your purpose, what was meaningful to you may not be possible in this new location. And so there's the loss of the friendships, there's a loss of purpose, things like that. Another one, for some people, maybe not in your situation, situation, but for some people, there's going to be uncertainty. I've worked with several people that they went to go across the border to do a visa run, and they came back and the country wouldn't let them back in. And in that moment, they're done in that country. Their stuff's still there. They got to figure out how to get friends to bring it up to the border. And now they're like, okay, that was not what I was expecting. What do I do next? And I worked through Returning Well with several people where that situation was the case. And it really helped them to resolve and bring closure on that past season, and then be able to say, okay, these are the themes that God did and the things that God did that can really, I see how he's pointing me forward now, and I can go forward from that. Another one is just the simple exhaustion of it. If you think about all the things that we just do naturally during our day, of, even just making coffee in the morning or doing this or doing it, like checking this or walking across the street, whatever it is our habits are. When you are in home assignment or in transition, oftentimes you're in temporary housing over and over and over until you get settled at final place. And every time you go to that different location, you have to reset up all those habits. And where did I remember talking to one of my clients, and she's like, I just can't find my chapstick. And just simple things like that, like the nickel and dime stressors is another one. And then just the humblingness of it. I've had clients come back, and I know for some people, it's not necessarily a big stressor. It's kind of fun to be like, okay, what are we going to discover here? But some people with the expectation of this to feel comfortable and it to feel like home, to say, I've had one client come to me in a session, and this is in the US. Before, when she left, all of the US postal stamps had a number on it of how many cents you had to pay for that stamp. And that would be how much you put on the letter. While she was gone, they changed to forever stamps, where if you bought it, it's first class mail, you can put it on, get sent, no problem. Even if the rates go up, that forever stamp will always work. And she came back almost really sheepish, and she's like, I don't get it. Like, I just put it on there and it always works, but what if it goes up? And just, it's difficult because you expected to not know things when you went to your new culture. But when you come home, you don't expect to have to relearn things that you thought you knew.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes those come out of no place. You're like, I did not expect that. And those are just little things. But when it's little thing after little thing after little thing, after a while you feel like, I don't know this place anymore. Like, where's the next thing going to jump out at me? And then there's just that final kind of maybe last thing there is just that loss of belonging, to say, I have become a different person. And you may see, like I think I said this before, but like, you may see me as you think you knew me before I left, but I've seen trauma. I've seen God work. I've been a part of things that I don't even know how to put to words. And to be able to come into relationship again takes effort. And that's really kind of the part of the hearts of Returning Well, is to be able to really know your story such that you can share that with others, because that's going to build the bridge to relationships and belonging in that next season.
Yeah. And, I've my mind's just flooded with like all kinds of thoughts here. I just think that sometimes, I've seen missionaries where, out of, nothing that they've done, that all of a sudden their funding's just pulled,
Right.
And I remember I bought a motorcycle from a missionary here, and he just basically just woke up one day, and all of a sudden they were informed, like, your funding's been pulled. Unless you can figure out how to stay there, you're coming back to the United States. I mean, that would be traumatic. I mean, here you have your heart and life into a country that you love and you care about the people, and all of a sudden you're just like being given an ultimatum. Either you go or you're going to have to figure out how to do it. I could see things like that. I could see, like you said, go to the border and they refuse to renew your visa. I mean, those things happen. I was talking to a missionary during COVID that, literally, you're going to have to get a shot. We don't care what you think. And if you don't like it, you got to get out. I mean, these are just things that do happen. And I can see that those things would occur. Like myself, and you and I have discussed this kind of a little bit about transitioning. I look at transition as a promotion in my mind, as far as, hey, I'm transitioning. I'm looking forward to this new opportunity. I'm looking forward to, it's not like, hey, I'm going up to higher level, and I'm going to leave you peons. I'm not thinking that. I'm just thinking, hey, I'm getting an opportunity to use more of what God is doing in my life, and that's a sense of excitement. But at the same time, like you said, there's just things that a person needs to unpack in that situation. So, when you do this, like Returning Well, help people go through a process of reentry in a healthy way. I mean, what do you mean by that? How do you take someone through the process in a healthy way?
Absolutely. And just to comment one thing about what you said about getting a promotion, part of the goal of this is to be able to say, what are those things that you can take forward into that promotion,
yeah, exactly.
that you don't leave it sitting there. So
can I say this? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because this is one of them thoughts I had that I forgot to say. I can see spouses, like having an opportunity where one has the opportunity that one doesn't necessarily have the opportunity. And again, I'm not trying to say, oh, well, hey, if you got an opportunity, you don't need this. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that one spouse that may not feel like they have this opportunity. It's kind of like, let's just reverse this. When coming to the mission field, I had this sense of excitement. I had this sense of, this is what's going to happen in my life. I'm going to see these things be done. These are the things that God's placed in my heart. Well, my wife was leaving a ministry of 20 years. And she just thought her whole life was over with. She just thought her whole ministry was over with that she knew of, and she's going to basically walk away from children's ministry. I mean, that's like her heart passion is children's ministry. Well, little did she know God had a joke for her. When she got here, he blew up her children's ministry, meaning expanded it beyond measure that she couldn't even understand. But going through that process, it was very hard for her to see what God was having for her. And it was a very hard thing for her to deal with. And then obviously, once we got here in time, she saw the need and immediately dived in. 9 years later, she's ministering to children all over the valley. She's sending her curriculum throughout Central America. She's just on it with children's ministry. So I can see the opposite, meaning missionaries going back, maybe one spouse has an opportunity, the other spouse doesn't. I could see that one spouse dealing with these emotions like, hey, it's not like they put themselves on a pedestal in the mission field, but it's just like, there's a sense of importance of what you're doing. You feel God using you. You feel God, you see God using you and changing people's lives. And all of a sudden now that gets ripped away from you. You get plunked right back into, the society that you left, and you see your one spouse just flourishing because they got this new opportunity. And here you are, you're like, what am I going to do? What about me? What about me, God? So I could see these issues arising in someone's heart. And these are things that need to be dealt with. So anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
On that long bunny trail there, but anyway.
And it doesn't have to always be issues either.
Sure,
Because debriefing is essentially saying, what's the treasure of this past season? And what's the closure I want and to need for this season, and how can I take that forward into that next season? And I think maybe that transitions into that question you had of how do I do this in a really healthy way? There's different ways to do debriefing, but the way Returning Well is set up is that it's broken down into 6 different meetings, and you will engage a portion of Returning Well prior to each meeting. And in that meeting, you'll meet with your Returning Well companion. And the book talks about how to find a companion. Essentially, it's someone who's a skilled listener that's going to be able to just walk with you in that journey. And there's a section in the book just for that companion to say, these are the questions to ask, or these are some of the things that your person went through in the book that you can be asking about, and just be that listening presence. So all of the advanced global coaching coaches serve as a companion as well, if you wanted someone who's professional and confidential in that way. But then these 6 sessions are geared such that when you think about even just the cover of Returning Well, there's a sense of when you're coming back, like there's a sense that maybe you have some parts of you missing, and you may feel the hardness of that returning. And it's just, there's the difficulty of it, but it's in that process of looking back that you're able to move forward. And so in that looking back is to be able to say, not only are we looking for anything that may need to be resolved, but we're also looking for the things that we can learn and the things that we can celebrate, and to say there are actually some treasures here. Let's get those. And so sessions 2, 3, and 4, 1 is a meetup, 2, 3, and 4 is the debriefing, looking back. And then meetings 5 and 6 is saying, okay, now let's move it forward. And there's a very specific process through the whole book of being able to say, continually pulling forward so that you can take that meeting 5 and 6 and be able to say, how do I now move forward? And it's just an amazing process to be a part of time and time again. When, there's several people that will start off and in the debriefing as they're facing the grief and they're facing the difficulty of reintegration and all of those things. They're just like, I don't feel like I'm ever going to get through this. But the Lord is faithful, and slowly but surely they will come out of it, and that it's completely designed such that they would get to a place of renewed hope, renewed vision, renewed focus, clarity, being able to move forward. And not only having that, but then how do I reintegrate into community, and how do I talk about this thing that happened and the insights that I got through debriefing such that I can build those bridges. And the thing that is probably the unique thing about Returning Well is that it's designed to be completely flexible under the guidance of the Holy Spirit. And so those 6 meetings and the questions that are here, it can be done over a time period of 6 weeks. So you'd have 1 meeting a week, 3 months, which would mean 2 meetings a month, or 6 months, which is 1 meeting a month. And so what's beautiful about that is that your companion's actually journeying with you through that reentry as you're transitioning, as you're getting that renewed hope, as you're getting to that next thing. Then as you go through the chapters, there's, we did a beta test. So when we first drafted Returning Well, we put the draft out and then we send it to people who are coming and going from all different cultures. And it wasn't just everybody coming back to the US. There were people who, I had a Northern European who was living in South India, who was transitioning to kind of Central Asia. Oh. And in that transition, he used Returning Well. And so with that said, when we did the beta test, 50% of the people did the entire book and said, I loved it. And 50% of the people didn't do the entire book. And the reason is the beauty of that is that we went through as we were writing it, and every chapter has the table of contents. And when you get your book, you'll notice that there's these logos here. And essentially what that means is that's a core topic. And even when you go into the book itself, you'll notice that some of these topics are gray and some are white, and the core topics are gray. And essentially to say, if you're like, hey, I got 4 kids at home, I don't got time to do this, but I want to do this. This is really important to me, and I want to do it over 6 months. We say, okay, just look at the core topics. Those are the most important topics. It's going to give you an effective debriefing in the time and space that you have. But it'll still get you through. And for some people, they want to do all of it and to say, hey, there's a way for you to do that too. So then that way it's flexible to the person. And also just every question, we're just, really ask the Lord, is this a question for me to engage? If not, skip it, move on to the next thing he has. Yeah.
Now, what are some of the best advice that you could give for people going through reentry?
There is a quote that I love that says, let me see if I can bring it up here. It says, the man who walks a mile each day may get around the world at last. And just to be able to say, when you're going through that reentry process, every day could be different. I've walked with people and some days are like, yes, like I feel so alive and things are going well. And then the next day you're like, oh, you feel the culture shock of it or whatever you're experiencing in that reentry experience. And just to be diligent to know that renewal will come, of that just walk a mile a day, you'll get around the world at last, you'll get to renewal. It'll take energy, but it's so worth it. And as I think you noticed on Amazon, the reviews that people have put on there, some of them are just so beautiful. Of one of them out of the blue, I don't know if it's still on Amazon, but she had emailed it to me, of just saying how much of her experience and the wisdom that she gained would have just been lost to the subconscious had she not actually been thoughtfully going through the reentry process. And now from that, she had these treasures now to be able to give to people to win her mentoring or whatever ministry that she had next. And so for me, Returning Well isn't only just caring for the person, it's also being a blessing to the church, because this person who's come back has had experiences that are to be a blessing to everyone around them. And this is one of those ways to unlock those things for the community around them.
Yeah. In our last video that we did together, I kind of used the, fishing line analogy, and just going fishing, and you got this massive blob of fishing line that's all tangled up. And sometimes that's kind of like reentering, in so to speak.
Yeah.
And again, it's coaching, because, like Melissa's saying, you may not have that unbiased individual that you could contact, or that one that you could trust. Well, you can go call Advanced Global Coaching, and they can walk you through this whole entire process, utilizing this book and so forth. But it's kind of like untangling that fish line. And sometimes to untangle that fish line, you have to deal with certain areas of that mess of a line to bring more greater freedom to that fish line. So, I mean, if you're wanting to enter well, again, the key of the book is entering well. What can you do and build upon, your past experiences, but eliminating maybe things that are hindering you from moving forward. And, I said in the other video, and I'll say here, I used to snicker at the title life coaching, and again, nothing against you, Melissa. Now that I have found out it's truly a profession. Now, I know you are highly educated. This is your profession. I know that some people just like that little title, and they throw it on their Facebook page. And maybe they might be good at life coaching. I don't know. But this is truly a professional. I mean, this organization is truly a professional organization, highly educated people that are involved in this organization. So I just believe that life coaching, when done right, like you said, there's something, it's like, instead of people telling you what to do, it's like you help people come to the realization of the processes and steps that they need to go through and go forward to reach ultimately what's next in their hearts, if that makes sense. I kind of joked around with you, not joked around. I mean, I really did. I kind of investigated life coaching. I'm thinking, hey, this seems pretty cool. I think I might want to try to pursue this, because I think this, I'm wanting to become more in the consultant area. And I thought, I could kind of put a little twist on that and do life coaching. I mean, I spent maybe 4 hours of just going through some videos. I'm like, I do not want to do this. I'm not even interested in this. But I will tell you this, my wife and I are transitioning on some things. And I'll tell you, instead of like my past personality, because I'm just, if you haven't noticed, I'm kind of a go-getter, if that makes sense. And I'm just kind of, I don't want to say bully, but I definitely push in the direction that I would like someone to be pushed. But I've been utilizing all the little things that I learn about questioning and asking questions, and just keep on going on. And I just see the beauty of that it's more beautiful that people come to a realization in their own mind, and you help them walk them through that process. And I don't want to take up this whole video, but I'll tell us something. I was down in Florida, and I was fishing, and I'm not a fisherman, but I do like to fish sometimes. And my friend told me to get this lure that had all these, they call them jigs, on this line. So there's six jigs on this line, so you could catch multiple fish at one time. So I was like throwing it out there, and then it'd come back all tangled, and I'd like untangle it, throw it out there, and it was just a mess. And then this guy came over, and I don't even know if I could talk to him. He's kind of from a different country or something like that. And he kind of just started untangling. And so him and I partnered together, and I would cast out, and then I'd bring the fish back in. He'd take the fish off, and if it got tangled again, he'd untangle it. And I gave him all the fish. I didn't even want any of the fish. And so I'm just saying, look how beautiful that relationship was, that him and I together worked together to untangle the mess of that fishing line. And out of that, we were able to produce results. One, we produced a friendship, and then we produced fish that obviously fed his family. So I'm just saying that God, in that situation, it's kind of like, God was able to use that situation to bring positivity in a situation that maybe was negative, And again, I don't want to focus on negative, because like you said, it's not always about negative. Sometimes you come back positive. Sometimes everything's great, but still you need that unpacking process to be able to see the potential that's inside of you. And that's through that coaching process. And that's through that, returning well process, to help people realize what really can happen and what God can do through you. but you just have to untangle that, so to speak. And again, it's not negative. And we got to focus on that, because I don't want people to go, because this is another thought I had. When I got out of the Army, I had to take a exit ID, a photo exit ID, and I had this biggest grin on my face, and like one guy came up to me and says, I've been in the Army for 20 or 16 years, I don't even know what I would do. Why are you so positive? I mean, people were like thinking, why am I not depressed leaving the service? And I'm just like, I can't wait to get out of here. I'm done, and I had a big smile on my face. But Melissa's saying that even you should go through this process, because again, you can feel like you are having this positivity of a new transition in your life. But like she's saying, you could be facing things that you're not necessarily aware of, or there's things in your mind, in your perspective, that needs to be unwound, so to speak, to realize the full potential of what God has for you in your new life. So hopefully I didn't butcher that. Huh?
No, that was beautiful.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, you taught me well. So anyway.
And it just creates that space to really hear from the Spirit and to really know how he's speaking, how he's leading, and be able to move forward in that way.
Yeah. And also too, and again, I'm just blunt when I say things. I want people to understand this isn't some psychobabble, garbly goop. I mean, literally, like Melissa, and we talked about the other video, like she really focuses on the leading and guiding of the Holy Spirit. This is a biblical process that she takes you through. It's not like she's, because some people would think, oh, this is just none of that psychobabble stuff. It's not. It's just simply helping you understand the potential that God has for you, helping you unwind things, helping you see a different perspective that maybe you're not necessarily seeing. Because I mean, obviously, there's conversations that we have with people that you're like, man, why don't they just see this? Why don't they see the potential that they have in themselves? But instead of Melissa just attacking you and saying, why don't you see the potential that you have in yourself? Just wake up. What's wrong with you? Melissa does it in more of a professional way to help you see the potential that you have. And then what's cool is you come upon the realization, not she's forcing you to come upon the realization, but she's helping you walk out the process and realizing that you have this great potential in your life. So anyway, I'm going to move on through our outline here. So, churches, how can churches help missionaries with this transition?
Yes. So I really see two phases of reentry. One is kind of the settling phase, and the other is the processing. And so the settling phase is when they're just coming back into the country. And I actually am even working today with a couple that just came back, and they came back earlier than expected because of a situation. And as soon as it happens, there's all those questions of where are we going to stay? How are we going to get around? What our finances going to look like? Finding a new job. And so that settling phase is just so super helpful for that fellowship to be able to come alongside them and say, hey, here's, an Airbnb you can have for a month. Here's a car you can have for a month, maybe even more than that, 3 months, whatever, until you get kind of that reorientation that can happen to where you're into the next phase. And even then, when they finally find their home, being able to, even for some women, it would be great to take them to the grocery store. If you've been living in a place that has much less, and you go to the grocery store, I can't tell you how many people I've heard essentially start filling their cart at the grocery store, and it gets too overwhelming because there's too many options for them in the US. And I think it's overwhelming even if you haven't lived in another country sometimes. And they just leave their cart and walk out in tears. And so even just to go with them to the grocery store, help them make that decision, stock their fridge if they need it for those first few weeks, show them around the things that they don't know, and give them a grace-filled, shame-free environment to ask their questions, like, so what about this stamp? Or how do I pay this? Or what does this do? And the things that they probably feel like they should know as a person of that culture. So that's the settling phase. And then probably moving into the processing phase is when, once life is settled, there's a sense of really walking alongside them either as the Returning Well companion or just as a friend to say, what are the questions that you wish people would ask you? What are the stories you would just love to tell? What are the things that you saw God do? Just begin to ask those questions and just listen and just be that listening presence. And when they share, be able to be curious and to ask more and to show interest. I think that's the hardest thing is that, I don't know if you experience this, but there's a sense in which there's so much that is stored up, I think, in experiences of someone who has served the Lord and overseas work. And when they come back, there's always more they want to share than they feel people have the energy for. So the more presence that you can give and the more time you can give to listen, to just really let them share without feeling like they're shamed or being prideful or anything like that, can be super helpful.
Well, it's kind of interesting you said that, because I was thinking in my mind, because there's people that just have type of personality, like, honey, I think we should go to the doctor. I ain't going to the doctor. I'm not doing that. Just this tough exterior, and just, they're just going to take life by the horns and so forth. But I mean, I think the greatest mistake that we can do is be insensitive towards those people that may feel like this might be beneficial for them. And, I think that we should be definitely promoting the fact that this could be a good step and not discourage somebody from that process. I remember, and again, I've changed a lot since I've been here. Again, I just, I've been in the military. I'm just a business owner, just hard charging for the most part of my life. That's just the way I am. That's the personality of me. And I remember that we have this Facebook group down here, and there's a lady that's in the missionary care in the fellowship that's here in Honduras that helps missionaries. It's like a non-denominational fellowship that anybody can join. They help you, with your residency and things like that. Well, they have a missionary care department, and she was just asking innocent questions on the Facebook group, about some things. And I just thought, man, these people are just such babies. That's what I thought in my mind, and I know that's just wrong. And I apologized to her later, and I just put some smart comments on there. And again, this is years ago. This is, I think like last year. No, I'm not. Years ago. I mean, it's like 6 years ago. I was just popping off, just being ignorant, and I just think that people just need to be sensitive, and if someone is struggling about returning, I mean, come on, if you're watching this video, please get this material to them. You may beat your chest and say, I'm okay, I don't need this kind of stuff. But there's a lot of people, and even including me, I could see this working in my life. I see my wife and I are going to be taking a transition in the future for ourselves. I know that my wife could do very well with this as well. It's not because she's, just emotional or whatever. No, she's just somebody that I see that could benefit from this to help unpack some things and help her see what's coming down the pipe, so to speak, of the future. So I like how you said that, in the last comment. Now, you said something about, how can people better prepare for reentry before they leave the host country?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a few things. One is just almost kind of like a foundation is to transition ready any of your spiritual practices. And so there may be a sense that when you are in your host culture, or serving your host culture, you may have an hour or 2 hours or whatever it is that is your regular rhythm with the Father. And what I find in transition is there's just a lot of guilt, because oftentimes, because you're having so much energy output with just trying to reorient and think through, okay, we got to get insurance and we need a new SIM card and we need that. And so to really say, what if this transition could be a unique time of connecting with the Lord in a unique way, specific to this transition? What could I do? What options could there be? Could it be, listening to the book on the Bible on audio? Could there be different ways that I connect even with my kids or my spouse? And so that's just kind of a baseline of just really keeping that connection with the Father. And then I think just being able to say goodbye well. And, there's the famous, I think it was Ruth Van Rinken and Michael Pollack, I believe, that put it in their book, Raft. The book is Third Culture Kids, but just to raft. And the raft stands for reconciliation, affirmation, farewells, and think destination. And so reconciliation, are there any relationships that I need to reconcile before I leave? affirmations, being able to truly go up to people. And I think even I remember I realized how poorly I did this when I was leaving China one time. I had the translator came up to me and took both of my hands, and he had a gift and told me all the things he appreciated about me. And in the moment, I'm like, wow, he's doing this leaving thing so well, and I'm not prepared. But just affirmations, tell people what has been meaningful about their influence in your life. And then the T, think destination, maybe line up a Returning Well companion. The book is probably not going to be useful to you in your passport culture. You'll use it when you get back to home culture. But if you want to get it and start looking through it, you certainly can. But begin thinking destination. Of course, a lot of people are going to be doing that logistically. And then the last one, I said the farewell, of actually saying the F, say goodbye. And sometimes it's really hard for people to say goodbye. They just kind of like fade and pull away, or they may have a conflict because it's easier to have a conflict and then just avoid. But to really have that goodbye, whether it's in a party form or just an individual, combining the affirmation and the goodbye, but putting that together such that you can walk into this next season.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just, you and I talked. I mean, there's just some transitions in my life. I'm not like spilling my guts here on the video, but I mean, we're seeing some transitions in our life. And it's funny how you're talking about this. And these are thoughts that I'm having. I didn't even read your book yet. So I'm just saying that, that I'm transitioning in my mind. And I thought myself this morning, because again, the old Sean would just like, pack up and be gone. And people would like come and knock on her door, like, where are they? They're like, oh, they went back to USA. I'm not that bad of a person, but I thought in my mind, well, maybe we should have like a gathering or something, and just an encouragement in the word, and just, just encourage them in the things of God, and, things like that. So I'm like, going through this process myself. And I think that one thing that I loved about our last video, we talked about life coaching, is the culture shock, and how you walk the people through this process to soften the landing, so to speak. I mean, instead of having a hard landing, and then they deal with this culture shock that they really weren't prepared with, you help soft land that. So when they do land, because if they go through the coaching properly, they're doing 6 months prior to the field. So you develop the soft landing. So it's kind of like the same thing when you're transitioning back to the States, going through these things of prior to re-entering, you're basically creating a soft like for yourself, because like you were, go ahead.
I was going to say, and it continues to say that you can start it before you leave, but then once you're going through the debriefing process, that continues that soft landing. Because transition is, 4 to 6 months. And so that's kind of why this is set up for the 6 weeks to 6 months option, is that it's going to continue that soft landing and transition in the new culture. Yeah.
And so basically, our timeline, looking at 6 months, again, this is just, we're praying about it. No great commitments here, but I'm just saying 6 months out. And so just creating this soft landing, so to speak. Yeah. And I can see myself praying in the morning. And again, I'm doing this, taking notes, I'm journaling, I'm considering things that I haven't even considered. I'm like, wow, I haven't even considered that, hey, yeah, we should check this out. So yeah, it's like a total soft landing. I can remember back in the military, we were in Germany, we had a home, everything in Germany. And I'll never forget, I don't remember where it was, but we were either on our way or we got to Ramstein Air Force Base. We were in another area of Germany, and literally we transitioned from, having a townhome full of furniture, full of everything, transitioned right to the Air Force Base, got onto the plane, and then flew to the United States. And I'll never forget, my wife made a comment. She's just like, I can't believe how smooth this was, and I mean, it was just, like I was telling someone the other day, I'm just a logistical guy. That's just who I am. I just think logistically. So again, I think part of reentering is, like you said, that spiritual time with the Lord, connecting with the Lord, allowing him to lead and guide you through that process. He's going to speak to you. If you allow him, he will speak to you. You can journal, you can write down these things. God's going to bring things to your remembrance. And then I think logistically speaking, I think it's very important if you can start doing that planning now to instead of just getting to the United States with 6 suitcases in your hand, and then you're like, okay, now what? Oh, well, I guess we should probably be looking for a car. Oh, well, I think, maybe you could do those things now. And as you're doing it, it helps you through that transitional process. And then, like I said, when you get to the United States, it's like a soft landing. Oh, this happened. Well, that was expected because we planned for it. Oh, well, this happened. Well, that was expected because we planned for it. So it's just more of a softer landing. And it's not a greater, as much as a shock to you when you actually re-enter. So anyway,
absolutely. And I
I'm
think
teaching your book.
And maybe the last one too is just to be able to say, to really examine your expectations that you have. And not necessarily to say you shouldn't have expectations, but just to know what are they, so that when they're not met or when they are met, you can understand. Because usually what happens is our emotions come out of the difference between reality and expectations. And so if you're expecting the reality, if you're expecting the reality to be a certain way when you go back to your home country, and the actual experience of it's completely different, the difference between those two things creates emotion. And just to be able to name it is so helpful in being able to just process through that and to be ready. And I would say for most people, that wait until after the settling stage. So like, wait until you are ready to start asking those deeper heart questions to go through Returning Well. Most people find it waiting at least, I'd say 4 weeks, wait a month before you launch into it. Some people actually have done it right away when they came back because they had like a 2-month sabbatical kind of in a secluded area. And they're like, that's our space to do it. That was fine.
Yeah.
But just essentially when you're ready to start processing is when you can start going through that Returning Well process.
Yeah. And, just kind of touching on expectations. One of the things I learned, I'm a salesman. That's my profession, just a salesman. And I always told myself that I'm my worst enemy because I'll sell myself. I mean, on any idea that comes to my mind, I'm going to sell myself on it. And so I've learned to stop doing that. And I think one thing that has done well with me is dialing back expectations. It's just like we were kind of doing a budget today and just kind of going over some things. And, to me, I purposely inflated costs. I mean, because I talked to a guy here. It's like, hey, how much is it going to cost for us to live in Honduras? And literally, he said $500 a month you can easily live on $500 a month. And I mean, you probably thinking that's ridiculous. I'm not even living there. And I would know that can't be the case, especially with a wife and a child. And trust me, we found out real quick, like that was not the case. I mean, thank God that he prepared the way. Thank God that everything was fine. But I did not prepare for the proper expectations. And I think going back, transitioning, there's that dialing back of expectations. So if the expectations aren't met, then you're not devastated. It doesn't set you up for failure. It doesn't set you up for unneeded emotions that you're going to go through because now you're upset because you thought it was going to occur this way. And then obviously it didn't, and I think that's through financial, that's one of the biggest areas that I think a lot of people set unrealistic expectations. They set it realistic expectations of maybe opportunities that they think that they have. And then maybe like even with family, expectations like, okay, when we get back, our daughter's going to want to go to college. And then you find out she doesn't want to go to college or whatever, or he or she, or, you see what I'm saying? Or like these job opportunities, we think we're going to have these job opportunities and come to find out they're not available like you thought, so there's just a lot of things that you just need to kind of dial it back and say, you know what, this would be great if all this happened, but really, this is what I'm going to expect right here, in this area right here. And I don't think that's a lack of faith issue either, because I think sometimes people will go, well, where's your faith? Well, I just understand life happens and sometimes things happen and we got to be realistic about it. So,
and a phrase that I have really enjoyed is just hope with an open hand, that it's okay to have that hope to say, this is what I really would long to see the Lord do in my reentry or when I get back, but I'm just going to hold it with an open hand to be able to see if this is something. And so, and another thing that as you're sharing that came out to me is also what was really helpful is to set expectations for the people that you're going to be going back to, because sometimes they don't fully understand what it is that is going on for you in that reentry. And so being able to say, maybe to a fellowship to say, you know what, I would love to give an update about our work over the past 2 years or 5 years, I want to do it after my debriefing. Can we wait? Does it not need to be the second week I'm back?
Yeah.
It may be to your family to say, we're going to need some space just to recuperate before we have lots of family or travel or meeting. And I know you want to see us, so let's meet up for a couple of days, but then, we need 3 weeks or something like that. But just be able to set expectations with family and fellowship before you come back to can be super helpful.
Yeah. Because that's definitely, you have a lot of situations where you come back for 2 or 3 months. That's what we do. We travel and so forth. And there's just always that expectation. Are you coming to see us? And that's just not one person. That's many people that do that. And it's just like, I can't even fulfill the obligations that people want me to fulfill. Then plus at the same time, fulfill the obligations that I have with my family and things like that. So, again, there's just so much into this. And I just think that I want to encourage people to, go to your website. It's reenturningwell.com. They can go there. And then also, can they order your book on your website?
Oh, I send them to Amazon or Book Depository, whichever one feels is a better fit for them. Okay.
So they can order through Amazon. And then one other final thing, as far as how can people contact you if they want to get connected with you?
Yeah, there's several ways. So either through reenturningwell.com, they can go to the contact form there. advancedglobalcoaching.com, there's a contact form there, or my email is melissa@advancedglobalcoaching.com. And so that's another way. And on that Returning Well website, if their companion wants to watch, I have training videos for companions that they can go through and basically have kind of a crash course in how do I serve as a companion. There's also interviews there with people who have gone through Returning Well. There's lots of other resources. Basically, any resource I've ever created, or anytime someone's asked me to do a podcast or write an article, I've just linked it on that website. So anything and everything is connected there too.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. I really appreciate, your insight. You've taught me a lot. You really have. You taught me a lot, and I just utilize a lot of things that you've shared with me, and you just a massive blessing to me and what we're doing here at Morning Star Mission. So thank you so much for, just sharing with the people about returning well, helping them, enter back into that process and make it more of a positive reentry, and just to where they can continue on changing lives for Jesus Christ. That's really what it comes down to.
I love that. And just thank you for having me here.
Yeah.
And again, just your energy and enthusiasm for learning and just even asking questions has just been so fun.
Well, thank you. Well, it's just, you make it easy. So thank you so much. Well, God bless you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Right, bye-bye.